just mind-blowingly absurd, but okay, like if she has an extension cord row, I guess it could work. You know, that's how you're going to keep your reader following along with this absurd story that you're writing. Um, and oh, but so for another point is I had the fetus on the stand, and I made the fetus like one of the attorneys was trying to cross-examine this fetus, and the fetus just kept sucking on the microphone. I didn't let the fetus be able to talk because that would be one step farther than the scope of my premise. Okay. And it didn't fit into my story logic. Right. So it's absurd and open, but you need to adhere to the story logic itself. That's really going to be a key. And speaking of story logic, anywhere that you can bring in outside logic will also help to ground it. So as an example, I came across a random fact that helped ground this absurd, insane story with science. And I found that actually there's a precedent for this in actually kangaroos. The fetus will climb out of the mother, crawl up the mother's fur, and drop into the pouch to finish gestating. And that blew my mind. But it also helped to set up like so much of this story. I called the story Kangaroo, which was also a play on like the kangaroo court of women's reproductive rights and things like that. So anywhere that you can pull in outside logic and precedent, go for it, because it's really going to help to, like I said, ground your story. So that's a big thing. You want to be as absurd as possible, but you also have to have some kind of tether to reality, no matter how far out it gets. You need a umbilical cord to reality at some point. Okay. And let me see here. So yeah, when I say see every detail, I actually mean see it like in your mind. I have this, for me, I'm very like, I get mental imagery of what I'm writing, and it really helps to tell the story. So for photoshopped images of some of the stories I was writing back when they were just news headlines. And then, so this, for example, is the, that one about the cooking, the reality TV cooking show. And I could vividly see it in my mind. And I just made this like little image of it for the news website that I was running before I turned it into a story. But I figured I would share it so that you can get a picture of really seeing something, no matter how absurd or unrealistic it is, you should be able to see it in your mind. And also remember that it's not, the story isn't just about the absurd thing. Like, so for example, with this one, I made this story about the executive producer who was about to lose her job. So she had to do something drastic. So she tried to recruit this talent from a third world country to be on the show. And so I focused in on the executive producer and didn't, harp on the fact necessarily that there's this absurd thing going on in her life, which is this child on this cooking show. And then this was from an earlier version of the story before I decided to make the little fetus, like a tiny thing. I thought, oh, this could, maybe it's like a full grown person that just never developed. I don't know. But it's actually, even this story, I made it about the mother. And that was kind of like the whole point of the story. So she has a complete narrative arc in this story, and it's not really about the fetus. It's about the fact that the mother is not given a chance to even speak in this court, right? And I added actually the court reporter. I think I told it from her perspective. But the point is, see it in your mind, and also don't focus on the absurd thing first and foremost, if possible. Okay. Doing great on time. Perfect. So yeah, so those are just some tips for like how to flip the premise into a story. Um, Again, the key points to remember, excuse me, you can pick how you approach it. You can either stick strictly to the premise, or if the premise doesn't lend itself to being a complete story world that you've created, at the start, you're going to need to set up the how and set up the premise using logic, but focus on the actual story instead of harping on the joke. Write a real story with a real narrative arc. Be open-minded to all sides in this situation that you've set up. That'll help to make it more of like an actual literary story. And then finally, stick to the logic to ground it and see it in your mind happening. So yeah, now I guess it's your turn to write that story based on the absurd premise you have. Anybody have any like questions about anything we've covered before you get into that? No? Oh, well, then I'm an awesome teacher. What can I say? Okay, so yeah, what we're gonna do, we have about 45 minutes left. I timed it up just perfectly somehow. I don't know how, it never works out that way. 45 minutes, what we'll do is, why don't we take like 25, 30 minutes to write, and then we'll come back when there's about 15 minutes left, and we can each share maybe like, the opening scene or page or paragraph, whatever you want to share, or you don't have to share, but we'll give you that opportunity. And yeah, so it's 10:15 now. If everybody comes back by 11:15, then we can share what we have. Okay, and I'll be available. I'll be right here. You can. For some reason, I'm not seeing the chat unless I scroll up and this thing drops down. So if you have a question or you get stuck, give me a shout. Or if you want to write it in the chat, just say, "Hey Dan, there's a chat for you," and I'll see it. Okay. All right. Cool. Have fun. Remember, have fun. That's the only restriction. You have to have fun. Damn it. Okay. So go forth and have fun. And I'm still here. I'm just turning my camera off so you don't have to stare at my face. If you want to kind of finish up the thought you're working on right now, and then we can come back and share some of our work. So how was it? Was it everything you dreamed? It's kind of different there, right? From sort of the serious stuff we tend to write all the time. Yeah, cool. Okay, so does anybody have something they want to share, like the setup or like the first page or even just the paragraph, whatever you feel comfortable with? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so you can just tell me when to stop if you want.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Menopausal woman's hot flash overheats entire building air conditioning and floods lower floor in sweat bath. Could you please stop fanning yourself? The speaker, blonde, 30-something, interrupts her monologue. I'm sorry, I can't, said the woman, the menopausal woman. He felt fire and flames. The other people at the table could not see what she felt. Two on either side of her quickly moved away. She fanned her from the podium. Sweat continued to cover the menopausal woman, her notes beginning to soak it up. The heat in the heated up in inferno filling up the room. Every woman, everyone on the podium, she began to fan herself. A woman openly watched the menopausal woman dripping on the floor. There was a puddle underneath her chair, spreading over the carpet. At a rapid pace, the menopausal woman had another flash. She gave up on fanning, sweat running down her chin. People climbed on tables, sweat washed over the floor. The blonde at the podium exited through the back door. The the duct ceased to blow cold air, and the temp began to climb. Conference goers watched in horror as the sweat began to climb. Climb. Staring between the woman and the rising sweat, now covering the chairs, the menopausal woman, now crying on the stairs, crossing, grossing out the conference goers and fighting harder for higher ground to get up higher on the tables. The fire she felt engulfed her, head to toe, sweat pouring off her. And the tables and chairs floating. Some one went to the door. The electric switch had short circuited. So
That is awesome. I loved that because it was like filling up the room like a flood, and then you see the chairs floating away and at a conference. That is perfect. Great job. That's exactly what we're aiming for. So that was perfect. Good job. Who else? Does anybody else want to share? Yeah, go ahead.
So I'll try to read the first page. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Okay. What people don't of the three white soccer moms talking about themselves too much to the point, to their Black friends and later getting mobbed by a group of angry people of color is that the moms were not narcissistic at all. In fact, what happened was the moms, whose names were Stacy, Mary, and Louise, were eating at a restaurant, Applebee's to be specific, with their Black friends, Marcus, Tiffany, and Rachel. Not random Black people, as the headline suggests. And they were talking about their husbands who never let them talk about their lives or feelings. So these moms decided to tell their friends about their troubles. Their Black friends weren't talking as much because they were listening and offering advice.
I love it. That's awesome. First of all, Applebee's always, it's the bane of my existence. So anytime we throw that in there, I'm happy. But also just like this idea of flipping perspectives, it's perfect. That's exactly what we want to do. And I think it makes it a much richer sort of tapestry to work with whenever you get like multiple perspectives going at the same time. That's really cool. I like that a lot. Cool. Who else?
I can go.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. The sun is too bright this morning. I hate it. Why do we even live in Florida? It's hot and humid and full of bugs like the ants I'm crushing beneath my feet. I like to compare it to Satan's armpit. Mom always yells at me for that, but she isn't here right now, so I could yell it to the entire park if I wanted to. You know what? I think I will. Hey, all you Florida dummies, you're living in Satan's armpit. The park goes silent for a moment until a deep voice shatters that silence after a single heartbeat. Just shut up, you little asshole. The park returns to normal as if I'd never said anything at all. No one had ever called me an asshole before. People don't swear at kids these days. I was born in the wrong time, I tell you. I like being called an asshole. It's funny. Maybe I'll tell Mom Florida is like Satan's asshole when I get home tonight. Leaving the park behind, I make my way past the pond just a few blocks away from school. I yank my gator skin hat down low over my eyes to shield them from the sun. A splash in the pond draws my attention. There, slithering out of the water like some developmentally stunted dinosaur, is a baby gator. Unable to resist, I grab a handful of rocks from the path below my feet and throw them as hard as I can. Thunk, thunk, thunk. 3 of them hit. The gator lets out a sissy hiss. I laugh and bend down to pick up some more rocks. I cock my arm back. Moments before, a man now stood. He looked grizzled and sunburnt like some kind of Animal Planet safari guide. Who are you? Some kind of knockoff Steve Irwin or something, I ask. The man doesn't respond. He only smiles a crooked smile and snaps his fingers. I don't have time to scream as the hat on my head turns heavy and I end up face first on the ground beneath the belly of an alligator.
That is fantastic. And that's another thing too. With the absurd, you can go into like all different kinds of genres and have it be like, you know, sci-fi or fantasy, or in this case, you know, having animals turn into people and dead animals turn into live animals. So yeah, that is, and really well written too. So I love it. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah. I hope you guys all, by the way, continue writing these pieces and really flesh them out, because I think, I mean, everything I've heard so far is really, really cool. So I hope you keep working on it. I think we have time for maybe another person to read a story if you feel you want to share it. Yeah. That's okay. If you don't, that's fine. Okay, before we go, I actually do want to take a screenshot with everyone, if that's okay. If you don't want to be in it, you can totally just go off video. Let's see. Okay. Get rid of that. There we go. Okay, let me see if I know how to make. Is it this? Ah, I think it did it. And 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Okay. Great. I had fun. I hope you guys did too. Got to kind of stretch your imagination a little bit and step outside of the serious stuff that we're usually writing. Maybe like a little bit of take a breath in the middle of SCW. So Yeah, that's it for me. Does anybody have any final questions? Okay, great. Well, thank you for choosing this Zoom over going for a hike, which is, as everybody knows, overrated and lame, and probably they're all going to get deer ticks. So that was really fun. Thank you guys, and have fun with the rest of SCW. It's a great time. So really enjoy it. Okay.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Dan.
Thank you.